Hello, everybody. I am back to do my review as I hinted in my Cinema Folks News collab video that we would be doing a review of Dolittle. And if you can tell based on my posture and just how I even said the word Dolittle, I think you can glean how I feel about the film right off the bat. Um, I just got done watching it, and it's a lot of thoughts that I have with this. So. Um, let's get started with it. Dolittle is a remake of the classic Dolittle story. It follows Dolittle now when he's a little bit more of a mess, to say the least, and he gets swept into a new adventure that brings him back to his spirit and his passions, and um, man, where do I start with this? Damn, because I knew going into it that reception to this was pretty bad. I heard many bad things about this, and particularly with its production. I heard the production was also quite messy. I heard Seth Rogen at one point had to come in and do some rewrites to bring some more jokes to it. There was apparently some budget issues. It's like blown up to like $200 million. So this is meant to be like a tentpole of some kind. And it bombed so badly. Um, so so all the signs were there, but I was like, you know what? Maybe this will be something a little bit charming. Maybe this might work in some fashion. So I was going in with an open mind. Um, and wow. um, where do I start? I'll give you my one positive with it. There is a hint of likability. While I was watching it, I was getting a hint of something that I could like. Beyond that, though, um, this is a terrible film. I mean, by all accounts, this is terrible. Let's start with we'll work our way from bottom to the top in terms of like the negatives that are at the bottom, and then the ones that are at the top that are just the worst things. Um, so let's start with this first. Robert Downey Jr. Um, when he first started out in the film, I was a little apprehensive. I was like, okay, maybe that might work. Maybe this very cartoonish vibe might work. Then he started talking normally, and the accent that he has is extremely odd. I don't know whether that's supposed to be Scottish. He goes in and out of it throughout the film. It's a really weird accent, and I'm sorry to say it, but he does not do good in the film. He tries so hard, but every time that you see him, he's just kind of looking like this the entire time, like kind of blankly, doesn't know how to emote, kind of just stares at you like that. Like there's just like that the entire film. He doesn't try to provide more emotion or provide more this and that because I think even he realized there's not much meat on the bone to this. Um, but that's the thing that honestly didn't irritate me the most. I know that irritated a lot of other people, but funnily enough, that wasn't the one that irritated me the most. The thing that did irritate me the most, though, was everything else. First of which, we'll save that actually for last. That's the worst thing of the film. Um, I'm going to go directly to the child actors now, since I talked about Robert Downey Jr. Man, are these kids bland. These kids are bland, tasteless. The little girl shows up out of nowhere. She just pops up in the story and says, "The queen's sick." Like, she just pops up out of nowhere. Like, okay. And this male child actor is just so bad. Like, he has no emotion to him. Like, every time you see him, he has like this like goofy face to him. Like, he's always just like, I'm like, what are you doing? You need guidance. You need some guidance somewhere in this production. I hope you got some guidance. Clearly he didn't. But um, speaking of a production, this is completely hamstrung together. Like, this has no logic to it. It's just production there, castle here, something here. Like, it's just absolutely no sense to it. And I know again there was a lot of trouble on set with getting this film made. And it clearly shows when you see this how the production was brought together. Speaking of logic, there is no logic to this film, particularly when we come to the idea of what Dolittle is, which is that he can understand animals. There is no logic to it. He could just make any noise possible, and the freaking animal will listen to him. There comes a point where the kids can now actually start to learn how to communicate with the animals. They could just say whatever the fuck they can. Like they can just do this, and the gorilla will understand what he's saying. The parrot, he can make parrot noises, and the parrot can understand what he's saying. Like, and he can somehow be able to understand what they're saying. It's just like, where is the logic here? Absolutely none. Okay. Um, how about another one? The writing is laughable. It is extremely laughable. It's not even like child funny. It's just dumb, like absolutely dumb. Just really bad writing. I know, like I said, Seth Rogen and a bunch of other people came in to try to make this a lot more um, attainable. But even if you listen to Seth Rogen talking about the film, clearly even he knew that this was looking pretty bad. Um, but in talking about where that humor comes from, mainly comes from these annoying animal characters, voiced by a bunch of celebrities, and voiceover is just awkward. It's just awkward. It doesn't fit. None of these characters fit. John Cena voices a polar bear. Doesn't fit at all. And it's like the filmmaker went, hey, you know what creates character? Celebrities. No, that doesn't create characters. It just puts a celebrity to an animal face. Like, I don't see the polar bear, I see John Cena. I don't see the dog, I see Tom Holland. Like, it's like it's just like that's not creating character, guys. It's just not. It's just creating annoying characters. Just annoying characters. Um, and the worst of it is what I left for last: the direction and the pacing. The direction is terrible. This is probably the worst directed film that I have seen this year, and that is saying a lot. Okay, maybe not as bad. It's the contender. I'll put it that way, because the other one that's worse is Perez's direction and The Last Thing He Wanted, which I contend is still the worst film of the year. I mean, this is bad, but it's The Last Thing He Wanted. Well, when we get to the end of the year, you'll hear how bad that film is. But this is one of the worst directed films of the year. But by far and away, this has the worst pacing of any film that I have seen this year. It is terrible. This film just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and does not have any chance to develop anything, to understand anything else about the story, to give logic to anything else. It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes with crappy humor, crappy characters, really poor voiceover, really awkward looking production design, and at the end of it, you're just like, what happened? What happened? Like this is as cheap as it gets, people. This is really as cheap as it gets. It's awkward in all the wrong ways. It packs some of the worst storytelling I've seen all year, with annoying characters, terrible pace, and logic that is completely non-existent. And it's terrible. It's really, really bad, guys. It's one of the worst films of the year, period. I mean, it is. There's really no excuse for it. It's really one of the worst films of the year, and I'm pretty much done with it. I have pretty much nothing else to say, other than I will leave on this quote from the film. When I heard this, that pretty much summed up my thoughts of the film, which was this. The quote is, "I've been given a front row seat to Crazy Town." And that pretty much sums up my thoughts on Dolittle. I had a front row seat to Crazy Town. And yeah, it was quite a crazy ride. It was quite the experience. And it's one of the worst films of the year.